Tonight we journey deep into humanity's forgotten past, to a place where legend and remembrance still pulse beneath the sand, a tale older than holy texts, older than spoken words, waiting for your ears alone. So, settle back, let today's chaos dissolve, let the rainfall beyond your window become the pulse of another realm. And before we start, become part of this expedition. Subscribe and tap the notification bell so you won't miss the next story buried beneath time's silence. Now shut your eyes and drift toward the world's first city's edge. The atmosphere carries rain and dust. You stand facing Eridu's remains, where civilization's first bricks were set. The wind flows through broken columns like breath through an ancient throat. Each breeze brings murmurs not of deities, but of observers. Below your feet the ground hums softly, alive with recollection. They claim the first arrival occurred here. The Sumerians didn't describe gods falling in golden clouds. They detailed fire, thunder, light so pure it etched shadows into the earth. You shut your eyes and picture it, the darkness ripped apart, the stars shifting themselves to accommodate something immense, and when the brightness dimmed, they stood here. The observers. They weren't celestial beings. They weren't mortal. The ancient writings name them Apkallu, entities who descended from the heavens carrying wisdom that didn't belong to this realm. They instructed early humanity in building, writing, measuring the cosmos. But every offering bears a price. The records of Eridu mention cautions that certain wisdom was meant to stay hidden. The observers disregarded this. They shared openly, believing truth belonged to everyone. When you press the fractured stone where their sanctuary once existed, it trembles slightly, like something recalling the echo of their words. You pull out your notebook. Within lies a drawing of an ancient etching. Tall forms with flowing robes, wings tucked behind them, grasping implements resembling modern instruments. One clutches a globe, maybe a chart, maybe something different. The writing below it states, "Those who descended to teach the calculation of stars." Lightning streaks across the plain. For an instant the ruins appear intact again. Pillars emerge from the soil, glimmering with vitality. You witness forms passing between them. Not apparitions, not spirits, but recollections replaying themselves through thunder's rhythm. You catch their incantation, deep and resonant. We descend to awaken the dust, and you sense it, the unmistakable pulse of reality concealed beneath legend. In the distance, a tone, ancient, fractured by ages, emerges from a tent illuminated by a lone lantern. An archaeologist, his palms marked with clay, glances up when you step inside. "You're not the first to arrive seeking them," he mentions. But most halt when they discover what they encounter isn't solace, it's challenge. He spreads a piece of a tablet. The wedge-shaped symbols shine faintly under lamp glow. This one, he indicates, references names the church, later eliminated. Shamash, Enmeduranki, the carriers of flame, the guardians of prohibited vision. You inquire what became of them. He breathes out slowly, the identical fate that befalls every truth too brilliant for existence. It's concealed, retitled, or incinerated. Beyond, thunder sounds again, and for a quick moment the earth shakes. You crouch, placing your hand to the soil. The tremor feels structured, measured, like a transmission rather than coincidence. Somewhere far beneath, the account still repeats endlessly. The first arrival, the moment the firmament touched the ground. You speak their names quietly, though the wind nearly claims them. The observers, the archaeologist cautions you gently. Once you voice their name, they perceive you. You glance upward, and for an instant the firmament seems nearer, as if attending. That evening you find no rest. The storm sound blends with the pulse beneath the ground. You comprehend now why the church labelled them devils. They didn't arrive to dominate faith. They arrived to render it irrelevant. And that is something no throne, worldly or sacred, could permit. The rainfall ceases near sunrise. The plain radiates faintly with reflected starshine. You recognize the arrival never concluded. It only transformed its shape. Somewhere below the dust, the observers still remain, patient, invisible, and conscious. You move through a passage deep within Nineveh's museum, beyond markers that caution restricted entry. The atmosphere here is colder, the quiet complete. Behind protective cases rest tablets older than documented history, clay slabs marked with humanity's first language. But one tablet stands different. It's not registered. It rests on a surface wrapped in linen, a subtle tremor radiating from within. The curator pauses when you question about it. "That one isn't ours," she mentions. "It was discovered sealed inside a monastery barrier in Anatolia. The Vatican demanded it for interpretation, but it was lost." You remove the linen. The tablet radiates faintly where the markings capture the brightness. The engravings are superficial but intentional. Each line seems animated, as if the clay recalls the hand that inscribed it. When you follow the first line with your fingertip, a shudder passes through you. The writing starts with resonance, not letters, a wave too deep to catch but powerful enough to perceive. Then the significance reveals inside your consciousness. We descended to teach the pulse of existence. We gave the clay its form. We ignited the dust and named it life. Your throat constricts. It feels less like examining and more like hearing an echo older than recollection. Academics once rejected these markings as legend, tales meant to explain lightning, eclipses, and deluges. But as you absorb, you recognize the observers weren't portrayed as gods whatsoever. They were portrayed as architects, entities who grasped resonance, power, and change. Their appearance wasn't divine interference. It was adjustment. You raise the tablet nearer. Microscopic particles of crystal embedded in the clay bend the brightness, creating designs almost like wiring. You recognize this isn't adornment, it's structure. Abruptly, the museum illumination wavers. The atmosphere vibrates. The tremor intensifies, stronger, synchronizing with your heartbeat. The curator retreats. "Release it," she murmurs. "It's awakening, but you cannot." The resonance encircles you like force. You witness flashes, settlements of gold, stone structures humming with azure brightness, entities with extended skulls instructing humans in carving, in reading the stars. Then conflagration, destruction, quiet. You release the tablet. It strikes the surface with a muted fracture. The vibration stops. For an extended instant, nobody stirs. Then faintly, a tone, not from the chamber, but from within the barriers, murmurs in Sumerian. We recall who attends. The curator appears ashen. "This is why it was concealed," she states, "because it responds to consciousness." The church marked it profanity, an object that communicates to the undeserving. You question how she understands. She indicates an aged folder labelled Archivum Secretum de Tabulis Vigilantium. Within are images stamped with Vatican marks. The records describe animated clay relics capable of generating resonance from tremor alone. Annotations from the 1600s warn that certain monks who interpreted them lost sight, asserting to witness brightness behind language. You stare at the tablet. In the stillness, you promise you can still catch it breathing. Later that evening, back in your lodging, you capture the resonance it produced. When you replay it, it isn't vibration or interference. It's a tone, multiple, remote, singing a lone phrase, repeatedly. The instructors return. When the pupils recall, you halt the capture. The brightness in your chamber flickers once, as if recognizing. You recognize that what you contacted today wasn't an item. It was a fragment of exchange, the earliest language, encrypted not in letters, but in tremor. Beyond, the breeze carries the identical wave you sensed in the ruins. You move onto the terrace. The settlement vibrates softly below you. The identical pitch, the identical pulse. You murmur to the darkness, half in dread, half in wonder. You're still present, aren't you? The vibration strengthens, responding like a pulse, and in that instant you grasp what the Vatican dreaded most. Not devils emerging from below the ground, but wisdom emerging from within it. You move through the slim passages of ancient Uruk as the darkness breathes against the barriers. The ruins slumber, but something underneath them doesn't. A handful of lamps burn weakly against the dark, the sort of illumination that feels impermanent, as if it's being endured rather than embraced. You halt before a modest chamber constructed from layered stone. Within, archaeologists murmur in hushed tones, their words gentle but anxious, as though the barriers themselves are attending. A researcher welcomes you, a woman whose gaze carries the weariness of too many findings that existence refuses to acknowledge. She guides you to a lone slab of basalt resting on a timber surface. The engravings are pale, almost eliminated, yet the atmosphere around it trembles slightly, the identical deep vibration you've started to identify. She regards you and states quietly, "This is where they were identified." You lean nearer. The script is ancient, Akkadian, and below it, older Sumerian sounds, overlapping like two strata of reality compressed together. As your digits hover above the markings, you start to witness the identities emerge, one by one. Utu, the brilliant one. Enmaduranki, the connection between firmament and mortal. Arazu, the constructor. Nungal, the observer of passages, the one who calculates. Adapa, the first instructor. Each identity carries resonance, not just significance, but vibration. The sounds tremble faintly in your throat as you voice them, as if they were intended to be uttered aloud only by those who recall. The researcher clarifies they were not celestial beings. The term observer arrives later, mistranslated through Enochian writings. The Sumerians named them the Apkallu, the wise ones dispatched from above the vault. You inquire why the church altered their identities. She exhales, following one of the engravings with her protected digit. Because identities hold authority. To retitle something is to confine it. When the early church rewrote these tablets, they transformed the Apkallu into the descended. They transform instructors into dissidents. You examine the engravings. Around each identity are markings shaped like celestial bodies, each connected by a slim line. Arrangements map not across the firmament, but across resonance. The observers, it appears, were mapped like waves, each representing a pitch within the range of existence. When you press the identity Adapa, the slab trembles beneath your palm. The researcher recoils but doesn't shift. The tremor becomes a subtle pitch, deep, sorrowful, almost mortal. In your consciousness, a term surfaces, unbidden, recollection. You withdraw your palm, but the pitch remains in the atmosphere, circling the chamber for an instant. The darkness on the barriers seem to shift. You witness shapes, tall, radiant forms with faces neither gentle nor harsh. Their gaze burns faintly with the reflection of celestial bodies. The researcher's tone shakes. Every occasion someone voices their true identities, they awaken not as forms, but as waves. You inquire what that signifies. She glances upward, her face half illuminated by lamp glow. It signifies they were never absent. They exist wherever resonance recalls them. The atmosphere becomes denser. You catch subtle chanting from beyond, natives praying against the desert breeze. Their words blend with the vibration of the tablet, and for an instant you perceive something aligning. The identities start to radiate faintly, pulsing in rhythm with the prayers. The researcher murmurs they catch us even now. Abruptly the lamps waver and die. The chamber descends into darkness. The vibration expands, resonant, commanding. You sense pressure in your hearing, your chest compressing as if the atmosphere itself has mass. Then, from within that resonance, a tone, multiple, without gender, vast, communicates in your consciousness. We were dispatched to direct, not to command. But mortal dreaded the offering and rendered it transgression. You collapse to your knees, gaze burning with tears you don't recall forming. The tone proceeds, gentler now. Recall our identities. The recollection is the passage. The resonance dissolves. The lamps reignite. The researcher stands motionless, her expression indecipherable. You both understand something ancient just awakened. She seals the tablet, carefully enclosing it in silk. This must not reach the collections, she states. Once they document the identity, they can seal it under new language. That's how the forgetting starts. As you depart the chamber, the breeze beyond carries the identical pulse. Gentle, intentional, endless. Each gust appears to murmur the identities again, as though the desert itself has been anticipating for someone to recall. And somewhere overhead, beyond the celestial bodies, you sense it. Gaze observing, not in assessment but in sorrow. The observers have been identified again. The monastery rests high in the Ethiopian peaks, wrapped in vapour and the aroma of burning myrrh. You appear at sunrise when the sun is only a faint outline behind the clouds. The monks welcome you without utterance, their gaze peaceful but understanding. They guide you down slim stone passages that resonate with each footfall. Somewhere deep within these barriers rests the Book of Enoch, the prohibited writing that connects firmament, ground, and profanity. The church once named it Apocrypha, but the reality it carries is older than any scripture. You step into a chamber illuminated only by oil lamps. In the middle, below protective covering, rests a manuscript bound in darkened leather. The atmosphere vibrates faintly, alive with tremor. The superior stands beside it, palms folded, his expression calm yet cautious. "It is not examined," he states gently. "It is caught." He removes the covering and opens the initial page. The inscription is Ge'ez, the language of celestial beings. In this location, the characters curl like vapour. He starts to chant, deep and measured, the resonance reverberating through the chamber. You sense it before you comprehend it. Each utterance is pulse, beat before significance. The superior interprets between respirations. Enoch moved with those who descended. He was revealed the calculation of existence, and when he returned, he was not the identical. You shut your gaze. The chant intensifies. Behind the resonance, something awakens. You witness visions, peaks carved with markings, brightness descending through clouds, and forms cloaked in radiance, instructing humanity how to summon the rainfall, how to restore the flesh, how to communicate to the celestial bodies. The superior halts chanting. This is why the Vatican prohibited it. He murmurs it, identifies them. You open the following page. The script burns faintly golden. It mentions 200 observers descending upon Mount Hermon. They pledged an oath to distribute divine wisdom with humanity. But when they performed, the Creator expelled them, not for wickedness, but for defiance. Their commander's identity is inscribed carefully, Shemihaza. Below it, another, Azazel. You have examined these identities previously, in demonology writings, concealed in the Vatican's prohibited catalogue. But here, in Enoch's palm, they are not creatures, they are mourners, entities who cherished humanity enough to descend for it. The superior proceeds gently. They were disciplined not for degradation, but empathy. They gave brightness to clay, they fractured the quiet. The more you examine, the more the atmosphere thickens. The characters appear to glimmer, rearranging themselves into resonance. You recognize the writing is alive, a resonant sequence inscribed in wave. Abruptly the lamps waver, the darkness stretches along the barriers. You catch subtle respiration, though nobody else is present. The superior retreats, his face ashen. You have opened the recalling, he states. From within the pages arrives a murmur, not from marking, but from the tremor of the parchment itself. The tone is composed, melodic. Enoch is not absent. He became resonance. The observers instructed him how to communicate through duration. You sense the resonance shift through your chest, like a pulse, not your own. The superior collapses to his knees, uttering prayers in Ge'ez. The manuscript's borders radiate faintly, each character pulsing with brightness. You witness pieces, settlements of brightness, structures vibrating like living instruments, mortals and observers moving side by side. And then a curtain, a great separation drawn between firmament and ground. The tone dissolves into quiet, leaving only the resonance of your respiration. The superior seals the book gently, his palms shaking. It communicates to those who attend, he states. That is why the church concealed it, because once you catch, you cannot uncatch. You inquire what the observers desired. He glances upward, his gaze moist with reverence. They desired us to recall that existence was not command, it was exchange. Beyond, the firmament starts to clear. Sunlight penetrates through the vapour, dispersing across the monastery barriers. You sense warmth return to the atmosphere, yet something inside you stays cold, a peaceful comprehension that this brightness has burned previously. You move beyond. The valley extends below like an ocean of stone and quiet. You recognise now that Enoch's account was never about transgression. It was about the cost of illumination. The observers gave humanity the keys to existence, and in exchange, the guardians of firmament secured the passages. As you stand on the border of the peak, the breeze rises, deep harmonic, recognisable. You identify the pitch. It's the identical vibration from the ruins, from the tablets, from the murmurs below the Vatican barriers. The identical resonance carried through ages. You murmur into the breeze. What are you attempting to communicate to us? The response arrives gently, carried through atmosphere that appears older than duration itself, that what descends is not always vanished. The peak breathes out, the existence vibrates, and the tone of Enoch, the first attendant, still resonates in the quiet that follows. The desert is silent, boundless and golden. You move toward the edge where sand encounters the skeleton of the past. The breeze is thin here, like respiration stretched over eternity. You halt when you reach a circle of blackened stones. The atmosphere feels charged, metallic, as if the ground still recalls being burned. This is where the tablets state it occurred, the darkness the firmament descended. Archaeologists name it the Eridu Impact Zone, a stretch of fused glass and obsidian that no volcano could have created. The sand here was liquefied into sheets so perfect they reflect brightness like mirrors. The ancients named it the location where the gods arrived in conflagration. You crouch and press the surface. It's still warm below the crust, as though some ember burns in the depths. The atmosphere vibrates faintly, that identical deep tremor that followed you since the ruins. You identify it now, a wave that communicates before utterances. You shut your gaze, and the vibration intensifies into thunder. A flash of brightness fills your consciousness, pale, searing, eternal. You witness them not in flesh, but as shapes made of flame and resonance. They descend from the cosmos like comets, wrapped in halos of liquid brightness. The earth shakes below their footfalls. Where they move, stone transforms molten. The Sumerians inscribed that the Anunna arrived on wings of conflagration. Yet what you witness is not wings. It's propulsion, power, shaped like radiance. They settle among mortals who collapse to their knees, faces concealed from the brilliance. The observers communicate without mouths. Their tones resonate directly into the bones. Do not dread the conflagration. It is the seed of vision. The vision wavers. You open your gaze, gasping. Back in the desert, the breeze whirls around you, dispersing sand into spirals. You're not hallucinating. You're recalling. Somewhere in this earth is the evidence. You excavate with your palms, desperate. The sand yields to stone, and below the stone, a piece, smooth, translucent, shaped like a fragment of a lens. You raise it to the sun, and for a moment the brightness bends unnaturally, forming rings of colour that twist like living entities. Behind you, a tone communicates. Magnificent, isn't it? You rotate. A man stands there, native, weathered, dressed like a guide. But his gaze is strange. They appear to reflect the brightness differently. They state these pieces descended from the celestial bodies, he states, crouching beside you. But that's not accurate. They didn't descend. They appeared. He retrieves another piece, raises it to his hearing, and grins faintly. Attend closely. You lean in. The fragment emits a subtle vibration, pure and measured. Not random interference. Design, exchange. They arrived not as gods, the man states, but as architects. They constructed their conflagration to open a passage. You inquire how he understands this. He tilts his head toward the edge, where the atmosphere glimmers with heat. Because my people never forgot. We named them Ushamgal, the great serpents of brightness. The church named them devils, identical entities, different dread. The breeze shifts, carrying grains of glass that glint like celestial bodies. The man's gaze narrow. They instructed us how to make the conflagration communicate, how to utilize it. Not for destruction, but for existence. You inquire what occurred to them. He glances away. They gave too much. The rulers grew envious. The priests named them heretics. So the firmament itself was commanded to silence them. He indicates upward. You follow his attention. In the vast emptiness overhead, a subtle glimmer crosses the clouds. Something metallic, measured, intentional. For an instant it resembles a moving celestial body. Then it disappears. They still observe, he states gently, but only when someone attends. That darkness, you camp near the glass plane. The conflagration crackles gently, throwing reflections against the fused sand. The pieces around you glimmer, alive with refracted flame. You capture the resonance they create when struck gently, a harmonic pitch that resonates like an instrument. When you decelerate the playback, a design emerges, not melody, but information, repeating intervals, geometric proportions, structures too intentional for coincidence. You recognize these were not armaments. They were transmissions, encrypted in resonance and brightness. The observers didn't descend in fury. They descended to exchange. The celestial bodies overhead burn brighter than previously. The edge radiates faintly crimson, though there's no sun. In the distance, a pulse of azure brightness flashes once, then disappears. The earth below you trembles gently, synchronizing with your pulse. You murmur into the darkness. Are you still present? The breeze responds, not in utterances, but in a measured rising vibration that fills the atmosphere, rising until it seems like the ground itself is communicating through you, and you comprehend what the conflagration truly was. Not destruction, but descent, a passage forged from power, a signal that opened the boundary between the mortal and the sacred. You stare at the edge until sunrise. The glass below you captures the first brightness of morning, burning again for a lone respiration before cooling into quiet. The observers are absent, but the firmament still recalls their conflagration. The account of existence has always been communicated by the victors of faith, but the reality, the unspoken reality, rests in the palms of those who were disciplined for recalling. You stand inside a modest chamber below the ruins of Kish. Around you are relics sealed in resin and dust, bones, implements, pieces of copper shaped into strange symmetrical shapes. Each bears the identical marking, a gaze within a circle surrounded by 7 rays. A historian communicates gently beside you. The ancients stated the observers gave us wisdom. They instructed us how to examine the celestial bodies, how to draw authority from the ground, how to blend metals and remedy disease. But every offering arrived with result. She unwraps a portion of clay the dimension of your palm. It bears microscopic engravings, a catalogue of terms in cuneiform arranged like an inventory. She interprets as she examines the mysteries of birth, the mysteries of conflagration, the mysteries of shape. These, she states, were named the Me, the sacred instructions. The observers handed them to humanity, blueprints of existence itself. You examine the object around the terms. The borders of the clay are scorched, as if burned by heat too intense for ground. You inquire what occurred after. The historian pauses. They attempted to instruct agriculture, architecture, mathematics, astronomy, but then they distributed the prohibited entities, the wisdom of self. You inquire what that signifies. She regards you carefully. They instructed mortal that he was not created powerless, that he was made of the identical matter as the celestial bodies. The quiet between you intensifies. You comprehend why such instruction was prohibited. Authority eliminates command. She proceeds, her tone lower. The priests dreaded it. The rulers declared it profanity. And so the offerings that restored became curses. The implements that constructed became armaments. You glance around the chamber. Strange instruments line the barriers. Early lenses, magnetic stones, pieces of unknown alloys. None of this belongs to a civilization that was supposed to have barely discovered bronze. You retrieve one of the lenses. It's smooth, perfect, like crystal carved by precision machines. When you raise it to the brightness, images flicker inside it. Arrangements, diagrams, designs of power that shift when you shift, the historian murmurs. They state the observers constructed implements that could interpret the tone of the universe, machines that transformed resonance into vision. You inquire if that's what this is. She nods, measured. Yes, but to those who didn't comprehend it, it resembled sorcery, so they named it prohibited. The earth shakes faintly. Dust descends from the ceiling. Somewhere overhead a tempest is constructing. You conceal the lens. The vibration intensifies again, that identical tremor that appears to follow you everywhere. You recognize it's not arriving from the ground this occasion. It's arriving from the objects themselves. Each relic trembles with the identical wave, deep and resonant. The historian appears terrified. They're resonating, she states. It occurs when someone aligns with their design. You advance nearer. The items appear to radiate faintly in response to your presence. The vibration becomes melody, multiple pitches harmonizing in strange mathematical precision. It seems like standing inside a living equation. The atmosphere becomes dense. You catch murmurs, pieces of tones, ancient and patient. We gave you the brightness. You made it an armament. The historian covers her hearing. Halt, she pleads. They don't forgive easily, but the resonance only intensifies. The items on the shelves start to shift, drawn toward each other, assembling into a shape you don't comprehend. A circle of brightness forming designs on the barrier. The tone proceeds. We offered wisdom, not command. You requested dominion, not comprehension. You retreat as the circle collapses inward, releasing a lone pulse of power that ripples through the chamber. The brightness dissolves. The vibration halts. The historian collapses to her knees, weeping quietly. That's why they were expelled, she murmurs. Not because they defied God, because they trusted humanity too greatly. You glance down at the lens in your palm. Its radiance has dimmed, but subtle lines of brightness still shift across its surface like veins. You recognize this isn't just an object. It's a fragment of the exchange, a key. Beyond, thunder sounds across the desert, resonating like an ancient tone repeating its lesson. The prohibited offerings were never intended to destroy. They were intended to awaken. But humanity chose authority over purpose, and when we performed, the observers descended with us. You raise the lens to the dissolving brightness. It captures the final ray of the setting sun and throws it across the barrier, a perfect circle pulsing gently. You murmur to the quiet we recall, and far away in the deep vibration of the edge, something awakens, subtle like the respiration of a god recalling its own exile. The resonance starts before the vision, a deep tremor, steady and exact, pulsing through the sand like a pulse under the existence. You follow it through the ruins until you reach a chamber of obsidian barriers carved with lines of ancient geometry. The shapes are intentional designs of balance and proportion, the identical markings that appear in sanctuaries across Mesopotamia, Egypt, and even later Rome. They all guide to one command. In the middle stands a black tablet, fractured but intact enough to communicate. Its surface reflects no brightness. When you press it, the vibration intensifies, the atmosphere thickens until your respiration seems like mass. You shut your gaze. The darkness communicates. There was once a law before all others. The tone is not mortal. It resonates like something thinking in multiple dimensions at once, a resonance that bends your thoughts as it enters them. The first law was not inscribed in utterances or stone. It was resonance, the tremor that holds existence together. Fracture, the resonance, and you fracture the existence. You witness images now, shapes forming from void, spirals of brightness weaving into matter. The observers appear among them, not as dissidents or celestial beings, but as conductors of a great symphony. They tune the waves that hold existence stable. That was their first purpose, to maintain the resonance between firmament and ground. But then something shifted. A ripple, modest at first, like a lone note out of tune. One of the observers, his identity vanished to duration, altered the wave to distribute it with humanity. He fractured the quiet of firmament. And that was the first transgression. Revelation without permission. The tone dissolves, the vibration remains. You open your gaze, dizzy, the vision dissolving like vapour. The tablet below your palm trembles faintly. You murmur. So the law wasn't moral, it was cosmic. Behind you, a resonance. Footfalls. You rotate. The historian from Kish stands at the entrance holding a torch. Her expression is uneasy. You discovered it, she states gently. The origin tablet. You inquire what the first law truly signifies. She advances nearer, her darkness extending across the floor. It prohibited distributing sacred wave with mortals. The observers believed existence was harmony. But when they instructed humans how to tune it, how to shape reality through resonance, they fractured the cosmic command. You regard her. So wisdom itself was the violation. She nods. Wisdom that could render mortal equal to God. You stare at the engravings on the barrier. They portray 7 entities standing over humanity, palms raised, strings of brightness running between their digits and the earth below. Smaller forms crouch in wonder. One panel reveals what occurs next. Disorder, tempests, a wave consuming the celestial bodies. You run your palm over the final line. The marking states, those who give the resonance to dust will descend below it. The historian's tone shakes. They weren't disciplined for wickedness. They were disciplined for generosity. You shut your gaze again, and for a quick second, the vibration transforms melodic, a chord trembling through the space around you, deep and infinite. You recognize it's not resonance, it's law made audible. The structure that holds everything in balance. She states the Vatican names this the Covenant of Quiet. They protect its pieces because it demonstrates that sacred command wasn't moral decree. It was wave command. You sense a chill crawl through your chest. Every religion, every system of command constructed on a lone fractured tremor. You murmur. And when the observers distributed it, they altered the pitch of the existence. She nods. Exactly. They made mortals capable of harmony and disorder. You retreat. The vibration dissolves. The atmosphere lightens again, and the quiet returns, dense as guilt. The first law wasn't about obedience. It was about authority, the sort too vast to trust with dust and flesh. As you depart the chamber, you glance once more at the barrier. For an instant you think you witness one of the 7 forms turning its head toward you, its gaze burning with recognition. Then it vanishes, absorbed back into stone. And you realize the law was never truly broken. It simply transformed, waiting in the resonance of everything, for someone to attend closely enough to catch it again. You watch the carvings stir, the hanging threads of light vibrate with life. You sense faint murmurs, not an alarm, but a welcome. Finish the song, they invite. Complete the melody we started. You realize then the Watcher's exile was not a penalty. It was a consequence. The instant they shared knowledge with man, the sacred rule redefined itself, eternally separating heaven and earth by the noise of disobedience. Evening cloaks the ruins in moonlight. The stars above seem near enough to grasp, as though anticipating. You stand on the high ground, gazing at a valley once known as Ekur, the mountain sanctuary of the divine. The air is crisp, thick with the aroma of dirt and echoes. Somewhere below lies what the ancient writings term the place of union. It is said it commenced with sympathy. The Watchers, banished for violating the prime command, lingered close to the world they once guided. They observed mankind striving, perishing, constructing, dreaming in apprehension of deities they could not grasp. A few felt pity, some felt affection, and from that affection the impossible came to be. You walk across the valley, the ground littered with remains too massive for regular humans. The breeze carries a gentle, transcendent sound, like a chorus submerged for ages. You arrive at a half-shattered edifice, part shrine, part memorial. The walls faintly glow with the faint remnants of ancient drawings. You raise your lamp and observe shapes, massive beings with glowing eyes, standing beside women whose faces are lifted toward the sky. In the surrounding gloom, an aged recluse watches you from his seat. His clothing is tattered, his beard streaked with grey. You seek them, he states, the beings that were not supposed to exist. You nod. The Nephilim? He offers a slight smile. Offspring of celestial and terrestrial. The faith labels them transgressions, but they were simply the next movement in the composition. You join him as he tends the dying glow of a small fire. The flames flicker in patterns that almost resemble text. He continues. They were not monsters, they were connections, part ethereal, part mortal, too pure for the physical world, too flawed for the heavens. He offers you a piece of bone, engraved with swirling designs. This, he explains, was recovered from one of their resting places. Examine it closely. You look at it. Under the firelight, the surface emits a subtle blue radiance, not from pigment, but from something inherent in the substance, living, self-illuminating cells still throbbing with weak energy. Impossible, you murmur. The recluse agrees. They carried illumination within their circulation, not as a figure of speech. It was reality. Their forms vibrated at the exact same frequency as their celestial ancestors. But their essence was human, and that sealed their destiny. You inquire what happened to them. They were feared, he replies. They matured too rapidly. Their comprehension exceeded that of rulers. They recalled the harmony, the initial command. They could shift stone with pure tone, mend injuries with resonance, even mould metal through sheer will. People revered them initially, then they begrudged them. He gazes towards the dark celestial sphere. When the immense waters arrived, it was not merely to cleanse misconduct, it was to erase evidence, to obliterate the lineage that proved the divine and the mortal could merge. You envision it now, the Nephilim facing the rising deluge, their eyes shining as the sky wept, the air throbbing with defiant chants. The recluse's voice softens. A few endured the stories of Gilgamesh, the mighty ones of ancient Greece, the luminous figures of ancient Egypt. They are all reverberations. Every culture recalls them differently. But the core truth remains. They were the tangible evidence of convergence. You ask why the religious authorities suppressed these accounts. He chuckles softly. Because they confirm the greatest fear of the Church. That divinity is something inherited. The small fire dies down. The shadows on the stone walls elongate into shapes that appear to shift on their own. You feel the deep thrum again, quiet and steady, surrounding you like a pulse. The recluse leans in closer. There is something else they keep hidden. The Nephilim never fully vanished. Their fundamental essence was preserved. You ask where he points. To your core. In all of us, every spark of ingenuity, every flash of insight, every creation that defies reason, that is their echo. The Watcher's offering did not cease with their direct progeny. It persists in their successors. You remain silent, feeling the reality settle like fine dust upon your skin. The night air cools, but the thrum grows warmer. It feels familiar, almost comforting, like recognition. The recluse closes his eyes. When the final Nephilim fell, the heavens darkened, the link severed. But the harmony never perished. It waits, dormant in the veins of those who can sense it. You look out at the horizon. The distant lights flicker in precise intervals, almost like a code. You lift the bone fragment to the meagre light. It pulses once, faintly, then a second time. A deep rhythm. You whisper. They are still communicating. The recluse smiles without opening his eyes. They always have been. Mankind simply chose to ignore it. The fire turns to cold ash. The hum fades into the current of air. It was the beginning of silence, the moment when truth went underground, when heaven became history. As dawn rises, light spills across the blackened stones, turning them gold again. For a moment the wind hums faintly, like distant prayer, and you realize the Watchers are not gone. They are everywhere. The fire once touched in the hum of the world, in the pulse beneath the skin, in the silence that follows every act of remembrance. The monastery at the edge of the Dead Sea stands silent beneath a bruised sky. You arrived at dusk when the horizon bled red and gold, the same colours the ancients used to describe descent. The monks live here in near silence, custodians of relics they barely understand. The abbot leads you down narrow stone stairs into a chamber carved into salt rock. At its centre lies an obsidian tablet veined with gold. This, he whispers, was found near the ruins of Babel. The inscription names the one who designed the tower. You lean closer. The words shimmer faintly, forming symbols both geometric and organic. A language that looks alive. The name written there is older than any scripture. Armoros. The abbot's breath catches as he speaks it. The architect, he says. The one who taught mankind the measure of the heavens. The air vibrates as if the name itself wakes something ancient. You feel pressure in your skull, as though the chamber itself is listening. The abbot continues. He was said to have defied both heaven and earth. The church calls him the first demon of invention. But the tablet tells another story. You touch the carvings and visions rush through your mind, towers rising from the desert, made not of stone but of sound, beings of light moving through scaffolds of energy, their hands tracing equations that bend the air. At their centre stands Armaros, radiant yet weary, eyes bright with longing. His voice echoes within you. We built not to reach heaven, we built to remind it we still existed. The abbot steps back, fear shadowing his face. You see him, don't you? You nod. The vision continues. The tower grows higher, vibrating with celestial resonance. But each layer added strains the fabric of reality. Bending the laws the watchers once guarded, heaven trembles. A voice from above, vast and cold, commands them to stop. Armaros looks upward, not in defiance, but in grief. If creation is divine, why forbid its reflection? Then, collapse. Light implodes. The tower crumbles in silence. The air fills with falling stars, the watchers torn from the frequencies that once anchored them. Armaros falls last, not screaming but singing a final note that turns into a hum beneath the earth. The vision fades. You find yourself kneeling before the tablet. The abbot whispers prayers in Latin, though they sound brittle against the silence. You feel tears on your face and don't remember why you're crying. He wasn't evil, you say. He was trying to build connection. The abbot closes his eyes. That's the heresy the church feared most, that the fall was not rebellion, it was love. You look at the tablet again. The gold veins glow faintly, forming new words. We did not fall. We descended. Outside, thunder rolls over the salt flats. The monks begin their midnight chants, their voices echoing through the stone. The rhythm matches the pulse in your chest, the same frequency, ancient and exact. You realise the chant is older than Christianity. It's a remnant of the architect's design, the same resonance that once held the tower together. Later, as the night deepens, you step outside. The sky above the Dead Sea is alive with lightning that doesn't reach the ground for a moment. Each flash reveals the faint outline of a tower made of light, not physical, but remembered. You whisper Armaros' name again and the storm answers. A voice drifts across the tower never fell. It waits beneath your silence. You feel it then, not beneath your feet, but inside you, the architecture of the soul, the resonance of creation. The watchers weren't cast down for arrogance. They were architects of unity, punished for remembering too much. The stars pulse once more and the hum returns, threading through your bones. You know it now, with absolute clarity. The fallen ones did not build to reach heaven, they built to bring it home. And when heaven rejected them, they built within us instead. The manuscript arrives in a plain envelope, no return address. You find it waiting on the steps of your hotel in Rome. Inside, a single parchment, brittle, yellowed ink, faded with age. Across the top, handwritten in red, De linea lucis, the line of light. The words pull at you immediately. You sit beneath the soft hum of a flickering lamp and begin to read. It's not a story, it's genealogy. Names linked by centuries, connected across continents, from the priests of Eridu to the mystics of Alexandria, from the scholars of Qumran to the inventors of Florence. Each name marked with the same sigil, a circle bisected by a vertical line like a beam of light dividing shadow. The Watcher's symbol. You realise what it means. The bloodline survived. The parchment describes children born with strange gifts, hearing tones no one else could, healing wounds with their hands, dreaming in languages they never learned. They are fragments, the text says, resonant echoes of the first descent. You trace one name with your finger. Lucia de Ferrara, a nun, visionary painter of impossible symmetry. Beneath her name, a note, executed for seeing the light within. All things. Another, Isaac de Montfort, 1704-1762, claimed to have rediscovered the sound of the angels. His compositions were banned, his instruments burned. You realise each bearer of the mark was hunted not for power, but for remembrance. The church feared not their actions, but their resonance. The text shifts tone midway through. Written now in modern ink, a translator's, the line persists in silence. Each century, one awakens. When they do, the hum returns. You lower the page. The sound is faint but real, a low vibration in the walls, pulsing at the edge of hearing. You felt it before in every ruin, every archive, but now it feels closer, as if answering the manuscript. You remember the archivist's words. The Vatican never destroyed the Watchers. They became its choir. If that's true, then perhaps the bloodline survived within the church itself, hidden in plain sight, cloaked in vows of obedience. You visit the library of St. John Lateran, where the oldest baptismal records are kept. The monk on duty barely glances at you as you request access to the restricted section. You find the lineage registers, thick volumes bound in worn leather. Thousands of names, organised by century. And there, written in faint ink, the same sigil, the circle and the line. You run your finger down the list. Ardente, Bellator, Luciani. Generations of the same mark passed quietly through priests, scholars and artists. The bloodline of light woven through the hierarchy that tried to erase it. The monk approaches quietly. You found them, didn't you? His voice trembles. You look up. Who are they now? He glances around before answering. They never vanished. They serve still. In the choir, in the archives, in the laboratories beneath the papal city. The light didn't die. It learned to hide. He closes the book gently. Every age needs a carrier. Sometimes one of them awakens fully. When that happens, the hum grows stronger. You've felt it, haven't you? You nod. He smiles faintly. Then you know what that means. You ask, who was the last one? He hesitates, then whispers. Pope Sixtus V, they say. When he died, the bells rang. Without hands, you feel the air shift. The hum grows louder, no longer confined to the walls, it moves through the floor, through your bones. The monk steps back, eyes wide. It's happening again, he murmurs. You flee into the open air. The bells of Rome toll softly in the distance, but beneath them another sound emerges. A low harmonic, ancient and familiar, the same resonance that has followed you since Sumer. You look to the horizon. Lightning arcs above the Vatican dome. Though the sky is clear, the air vibrates. Every surface hums with the same tone. People stop in the streets, looking around, confused. The sound deepens. Not thunder, not machinery. It's music, the Watcher's chord, returning through blood and memory. You realise now that the bloodline of light is not metaphor, it's transmission. The human body, once tuned by the Watchers, still carries their frequency, each generation closer to awakening the original tone. The manuscript's final line burns in your mind. When the line sings again, the heavens will remember you close your eyes. The hum fills everything, the ground, the air, your heartbeat. You whisper to no one and everyone, I hear you. And for the first time, the hum answers in words, not from above, but within. You are one of us. The light behind your eyelids flares white and gold. The sound peaks, not deafening, but absolute. When it fades, Rome is silent. The bells have stopped, yet in the stillness you can feel it, the pulse of the ancient chord moving again through human hearts. The bloodline of light has awakened, and this time it's not hiding. You wake to the sound of bells, soft and distant, though it's not morning. The city outside your window is asleep, but the vibration lingers in the air like a held breath. Rome is quieter at night, yet beneath its silence, there's always something alive, a pulse hidden under centuries of stone. You feel it tonight more than ever. The call came hours earlier, a voice through a burner line, no name, no explanation, only coordinates and a time. If you want to hear the truth, go beneath you. Follow the directions through narrow alleys until the streets end at a gated archway sealed with rust. The inscription above it reads Domus Caelestis, though the words are half-eaten by age. A man in a dark coat waits there, his face shadowed. Without speaking, he hands you an oil lamp and motions toward the descending stairway. The steps wind endlessly down, deeper than any catacomb you've entered before. The smell of old stone and myrrh thickens as you go. You emerge into a vast hall buried under the living city. An architecture of bones and murals, frescoes that glimmer faintly in the lamplight. The walls depict not saints or martyrs, but tall, luminous beings standing beside human figures, teaching them how to build, how to measure, how to sing. The colours shimmer subtly as you pass. The man behind you whispers, "The Watchers were here before Peter ever walked these streets." You ask where you are. He replies, "The catacombs of the voice." This is where their memory was entombed, disguised as penance. The church built above them to silence the resonance. He gestures toward an altar carved into the stone, a strange fusion of Christian and Sumerian iconography. A cruciform figure floats within a circle of 7 wings. Around it, inscriptions in both Latin and cuneiform spiral inward toward a single word, Shemesh, the sun. You touch the edge of the altar. The stone vibrates faintly at first, then stronger. A low hum fills the chamber. Dust falls from the ceiling like ash. The man steps back, his voice trembling. "You shouldn't have." But it's too late. The walls begin to sing, not melody, vibration, frequencies overlapping, forming chords that shift between sorrow and exultation. You hear whispers within the sound, thousands of voices layered across centuries. They speak in fragments, Eridu, Enoch, resonance, remembrance. The frescoes on the walls flicker like film. The figures move, their wings unfold, their eyes glowing faintly gold. You realise these aren't paintings, they're recordings encoded in pigment through frequency. You're witnessing history in motion. You see the Watchers teaching early priests beneath the city, showing them how to sustain the hum through chants and architecture. The cathedrals above were built as instruments, resonant chambers designed to amplify divine vibration. But then you see the shift. The priests turn fearful. The Watchers' symbols are buried, replaced by the cross. The chants are rewritten in Latin, their original tones forbidden. The man grips your shoulder, whispering urgently. Now you understand why. The hymns sound empty. They stripped the frequency. The songs are only shells. The resonance deepens. The mural before you changes again, this time showing a circle of robed men around a glowing object. One holds a tablet of black stone, etched with both ancient and modern script. You recognise the seal of the Vatican, the words etched beneath it, Custodia Silenti, the custodians of silence. The hum swells until it feels like your bones are shaking apart. You kneel, pressing your palms against the stone floor. Beneath the surface, you feel movement. Not water, not machinery, but breath. The city above you is built atop something alive. You whisper, "What's beneath this?" The man stares into the darkness. The choir. Before you can ask, a faint light flickers from the cracks in the floor. Golden, pulsating, rhythmic. The walls echo with the sound of chanting. Though no one sings, you recognise the pattern, the Watcher's harmonic scale. The same frequency you've chased since Sumer. You stand. The lamp trembles in your hand. You ask, "Who kept this alive?" The man's face hardens. Not who, what. The ground shifts. The hum becomes a low, almost human moan. The frescoes pulse like hearts. For a brief moment the entire chamber glows with living light. Warm, sorrowful, intelligent. You realise it's not a haunting, it's remembrance, encoded into the foundation of the eternal city. The man steps back into the shadows. They said Rome was eternal. They were right. The Watchers built its echo. As the sound fades, you see one last image flicker across the wall. An angel with broken wings, holding a torch of living fire. Beneath it, a single Latin lux. Occultur non est mortua. Hidden light is never dead. You climb back to the surface. Before dawn, the city feels different, not ancient, but awake. Beneath the cobblestones, beneath the basilicas and relics, the whisper continues. And for the first time, you hear it clearly. It's not just sound, it's breathing. Rome itself remembers. The invitation arrives without a name. A thin envelope sealed with red wax. The mark of the circle and line inside. A tonight after midnight. Palazzo del Bring No Light. Speak to no one. You follow the directions. Through the quiet streets near the Tiber, the palace appears abandoned. Windows are dark, the gates are rusted shut. Yet the instant you cross the threshold, the air changes. The silence feels deliberate. A passage extends ahead, mirrors lining the walls. Dust coats their surfaces, but as you walk past, slight reflections ripple across the glass. Not your image, but faces that are not your own. They flash in and out of sight, luminous and patient. They are the watchers at the far end of the corridor. A door stands slightly open. Inside awaits a huge chamber lit by a dim phosphorescent radiance. The walls are completely covered with mirrors, hundreds, perhaps thousands, arranged in perfect balance. In the room's centre, an obsidian sphere rests on a pedestal. 7 mirrors angle inward around it, reflecting it endlessly. A woman emerges from the darkness. Her voice is calm, precise. Welcome to the Chamber of Mirrors. You've been walking through their reflection for centuries without truly seeing it. You ask her identity. She smiles faintly. A curator, one of the few left who remember the original geometry. She points toward the mirrors. Each of these panels was shaped from liquid glass, mixed with pieces of ancient sand. The same sand that once burned during the descent. The same energy lives inside them. When aligned in the correct resonance, they become a map. You move toward the nearest mirror. The glass inside it moves like water. Images appear. Temples, mountains and stars connected by thin streams of light. It's a network, not based on location, but on vibration. You whisper, "This is how they moved." The woman confirms. Not by distance, but by frequency. The mirrors were doorways, reflections tuned to the fundamental resonance of creation. Wherever the light met, its twin path was open. You observe the reflections shift. Sumer, Egypt, Rome, and other places, unrecorded, all joined by currents of sound and form. "And this chamber?" you inquire. Her expression softens. It was the last one constructed by those who still recalled the Watcher's design. Priests who hid what they could before the final silence. The church sealed it, calling it heresy. But even sealed mirrors retain memory. You look into one of them. Your own reflection stares back, but something is wrong. The reflection delays a moment too long, its eyes faintly glowing gold. The woman's voice drops to a whisper. They use the mirrors to observe us, still. You retreat, your heart pounding. The reflections multiply, each one slightly altered. Some show ruins consumed by fire, others stars forming above oceans of glass. The reflections are no longer just mirrors, they are openings. The woman touches the sphere in the middle. It vibrates gently, and the entire room awakens. The mirrors brighten, connecting into a web of light that stretches past the walls. A hum fills the air, deep, powerful. The Watcher's chord. You whisper, "It's them." She nods. Their memory. Their signal. This room is not a historical site, it's a transmitter. The light intensifies until the mirrors appear to liquefy. Shapes materialize within the glow, towering outlines of luminous beings, each without a distinct face, yet strangely recognizable. They do not communicate with language. They communicate through reflection. You see yourself mirrored through their perspective, not as one person, but as infinite versions, all layered, all real. "We are the sum of what you remember," their thought voice states. The image was never separate from the light. You fall to your knees, overwhelmed. The chamber pulses like a living heart. The woman's voice shakes beside you. This is what the Vatican dreaded most. That human and angel were mirrors of the same radiance. The reflections flicker faster now. You see visions, the burning of Uruk, the collapse of the tower, the deluge, the archives beneath Rome. Each event reflected across time, repeating until recognition restores its meaning. Then the beings speak again, their tone gentle, melancholic. When you gaze into the mirror and look beyond yourself, we return. The sphere's vibration deepens. The mirrors start to crack, unable to withstand the resonance. The woman shouts, "You have to stop it! The frequency is too strong!" You reach for the sphere. The moment you make contact, light surges through your mind. You see the earth from above, brilliant lines joining cities, temples, cathedrals, the whole planet mapped by the Watcher's geometry, still humming beneath the noise of society. The mirrors shatter. Light bursts outward, then collapses into silence. You wake up on the floor. The room is dark once more. The woman is gone. Only the broken glass remains, faintly glowing in the shape of a circle. You stand, unsteady, in every fragment. Your reflection stares back, calm, aware, ancient. The hum remains. The mirrors may have broken, but the resonance is still there. You finally realize it. The Chamber of Mirrors was never just a building. It was an analogy. Humanity itself is the mirror. Every consciousness is a reflection of the divine light, split across time. You walk out into the cold Roman night. The Tiber glows faintly with the sheen of reflected starlight. The hum follows you, soft but constant. The sound of 1,000 mirrors remembering their original form. And you comprehend the truth that the Church concealed most deeply of all. The divine was never watching from above. It was watching through us. The storm begins without warning, not in the heavens, but in the air. Invisible, electric, alive. You are standing on the cliffs above Mount Hermon, the mountain the ancients called the gateway of the Watchers. Lightning streaks across the horizon, though the sky directly above stays clear. The air buzzes with a sound that is not thunder, but something older. Resonance, waking up after ages of slumber. The wind carries voices, not speech, but pure vibration. You sense it in your body before you hear it. Two frequencies opposing yet connected, clashing in an unseen battle. One harmonious, deep, bright, the tone of creation. The other sharp, piercing, disruptive, the tone of control. The conflict shakes the very air. You remember the texts. There was war in heaven, and the sound became separation. The stories describe it as rebellion, angels rising against the Creator. But the older clay records tell it differently. Not a revolt, but a disagreement over one essential truth. Whether knowledge should remain confined to the divine realm or be shared with the earth. The Watchers believed creation was not meant to be held back. The Seraphim believed order required unawareness. What started as perfect harmony became discord. The lightning hits the mountain again, closer this time. The ground beneath you vibrates with such force that the rocks appear to breathe. You kneel and press your hand to the earth. For an instant your vision breaks apart. Time folds in on itself. You are no longer observing history, you are standing within it. The sky above burns with radiant forms, luminous beings moving in curves of fire. Not wings, but energy shaped by will. Each one sings, their voices merging into a sound so immense it reshapes the clouds. The air becomes their battleground, though there are no physical weapons, only resonance and counter-resonance tones colliding until the sky rips open. Below them, humanity watches, terrified, yet captivated. The Watchers, the fallen, the luminous ones descend to protect them from the storm of divine order. The seraphim burn through the heavens like blades of light, cutting the frequencies that link heaven and earth. The Watchers respond not with aggression, but with harmony, weaving protective energy around the mortals who once called them instructors. But the chords cannot last forever. Each note they sing diminishes their form, dissolving their essence into light. One by one, they break apart, their brilliance scattering into the wind. The seraphim pull back, victorious but empty. The bridge between dimensions collapses, and the resulting silence becomes the foundation of scripture. You fall backward, gasping, return to the present. The storm still rages, though no rain falls. The wind howls, carrying fragments of that ancient sound. You realise the war of heaven was never about conquest. It was about fundamental belief, faith versus self-determination, control versus empathy. Heaven didn't fall apart, it fractured. A voice behind you speaks. It is the same man from the catacombs. His coat whips violently in the wind. You heard it, didn't you? You nod. The war. It's still happening. He moves nearer. It never ended. It shifted from the sky to the human spirit. The frequencies they once commanded now reside in us. Every sincere prayer, every creative act, every moment of contemplation. It's all part of the same conflict. The thunder roars again, and you hear it differently now. Not destruction, but a dialogue. Two truths debating across eternity. He hands you a small device, a kind of recorder. It captures resonance, he says. Listen when you're ready. He turns and walks into the storm, disappearing into the light. Later, when the air calms, you play the recording. What you hear is not thunder or wind, it is music, vast, mournful, beautiful. Two melodies interwoven, neither defeating nor surrendering, and beneath it, faint but clear, a single voice whispering. The war was never against heaven, it was against forgetting. You close your eyes. The hum stays in your chest, steady as a heartbeat. You finally grasp that the war of heaven was not a single event. It was the moment awareness was split. The very birth of duality. The storm fades into calm. Above the mountain, the sky glows softly, gold, like the dying embers of something too immense to cease existing. And in that stillness, you hear the echo of the first harmony, waiting to be recalled. You arrive at the ruins of Göbekli Tepe at first light. The wind sighs through the limestone pillars, carrying dust from 12 millennia of quiet. The archaeologists have left for the season, their equipment covered by tarps. You walk alone through the megalithic circles, tracing carvings of animals that look alive even in stillness. But beneath their beauty is something else. Geometry, hidden proportions that match Sumerian architecture, Egyptian temples, and even the vaulted ceilings of Roman cathedrals. You place your hand on one of the stone slabs. It hums softly. Not imagination, frequency. The same resonance you have felt since your earlier experience. You close your eyes, and for a moment the world dissolves. The pillars are no longer silent, they sing. The sound is low, deep, uninterrupted, a vibration older than recorded time. The stone itself becomes a musical instrument. You hear tones layered in perfect ratios, forming chords that pulse through the earth. The song of stone. You open your eyes. The carvings glow faintly, light outlining their shapes. You realise each symbol is a note, each arrangement a key. This isn't decoration, it's notation. Göbekli Tepe isn't just a shrine, it's a score written in architecture, you whisper. They built this to preserve the frequency, a voice answers, soft and close. To remember the song of the beginning. You turn. A woman stands near the largest pillar, draped in linen, her hair streaked with silver. She looks neither young nor old. The ancients didn't build this to worship deities, she says. They built it to communicate. With them, you ask? With the Watchers? She nods slowly, or what the watchers became. She kneels beside a small device, a circular instrument of crystal and metal. When the wind moves through these stones, it recreates a frequency that can align the mind with the original resonance, the vibration of creation itself. You listen as the wind picks up, whistling through gaps in the stones. The tones merge, forming harmony. Your heart rate slows to match its rhythm. The woman smiles faintly. This is the sound before language, the breath of the world. You ask how she found this location. She looks toward the horizon. It called me, as it calls everyone who still carries their light. You realize she is one of them, a descendant of the lineage, a guardian of resonance. She hands you the crystal device. The church silenced this song centuries ago, but stone remembers. Sound cannot truly die where it has been inscribed into the earth. The wind shifts again, and the pillars begin to visibly vibrate. Dust rises in swirling patterns. The sound deepens until it feels like gravity itself is singing. You see visions forming in the air, shimmering outlines of beings sculpted from light. The watchers, they stand among the pillars, their shapes translucent, their faces luminous. The woman bows her head. They never left. They sleep inside the stone, waiting for harmony to awaken them. The air pulses once, then again, each vibration stronger than the last. The entire structure resonates in unison. You hear words now, not in a language, but as pure tone, interpreted by your very being. We are the architects, the breath of form, the song of stone. You feel warmth spreading through your body, the same hum synchronizing with your heart. The woman murmurs that an unseen presence is communicating through you. You are receptive. The light strengthens until the ancient stones of the ruins shine like liquid silver. For a fraction of time you experience the world as the originals perceived it, form and sound unified, reality constructed from pure vibration. Every rock, every particle, every cell is emitting the identical note. Then the brightness diminishes, the melody sinking back into the earth. The woman slowly releases a breath. It is finished. They have recalled. You inquire what happens next. She fixes her gaze upon you, her eyes reflecting the weak morning rays. Now humankind must make a choice, to join the song or stay silent. You stand among the old structures as the sun ascends over the plain. Its light touches the etched designs, making them gleam one final time. You grasp that the stone's chant was more than just a transmission. It was a caution. When existence forgets its native harmony, it turns on itself. The wind stills, the ruins are quiet again, but the faint vibration persists beneath your feet. You record the tone with your device, though you know no machine can truly capture it. Before departing, you ask the woman for her designation. She smiles. My name holds no consequence, but I was once known as the daughter of Armoros. Your breath catches. The architect. She nods. His essence lives on in those who still recall how to listen. You walk away, the resonant chant of the stone echoing behind you. Low, undying, unbreakable. The very first tune ever written, still vibrating across the ages. And as the breeze moves through the pillars again, you perceive it once more, faint yet unmistakable. The world itself is the instrument. Play wisely. The vault of the Vatican has the smell of copper and aged dust. You move down the narrow passages with only the quavering beam of a lantern to guide your way. The steps of the archivist fall silently behind you. Be careful. Be respectful. We call this area the Scripta Damnati, he states. The writings that the church banished from the light. The shelves climb like barricades. Scrolls, handwritten books, engraved slabs. thousands of voices erased in the name of control. Some are bound in tanned human skin, others wrapped in fine silk. You brush your hand along the edge of a piece of parchment and sense a pulse, subtle but insistent. Even in banishment the messages breathe. He pauses before an iron barrier. Symbols burned into its face form a seal of dominion and apprehension. Ex scientia damnatio, from knowledge comes damnation. The archivist turns the key. This is what the tide of belief could not eradicate, he whispers. Inside, the chamber is still, illuminated only by the faint glow of mineral embedded in the ceiling. You count 7 elevated platforms. Each supports an object, a clay inscription, a bronze navigation tool, a crystal triangle, a bound book, a container of black silt, a magnifying lens, and a sphere made of polished dark stone and gold. These, the archivist says, were the prohibited tools. The church labelled them the seeds of the serpent. They called their originators heretics, but in the beginning they were recognised as the Watcher's gifts, the surviving remnants of the first instruction. You approach the crystal prism, its inner structure shifts as if liquid, reflecting colours you cannot name. This, he explains, was found beneath Mount Sinai. When struck with a specific sound, it captures thought. You whisper. A recording device. He nods, of pure recollection itself. He turns toward the astrolabe. This one maps not stellar bodies but sonic intervals. The Watchers utilised it to chart the frequencies that hold matter together. When the church discovered it, they melted its twin and scattered the pieces in salt. You inquire, why destroy something that could bring enlightenment? He looks at you with a sorrowful expression, because understanding brings liberation, and liberation shatters command. To maintain discipline, they exiled wonder. He indicates the final object, the dark stone and gold sphere. This one is the most perilous. It is rumoured to contain the originating sound, the tremor that awakened the universe. The church locked it away here when its resonance made the bells of Rome ring without human touch. You draw near to it. The exterior feels vital. When you touch it, the hum intensifies, faint yet unmistakable, the exact pitch that has tracked you from the ancient ruins to Rome. The archivist takes a step back in alarm. Do not listen too deeply, he cautions. Those who hear it lose the illusion of individual separation. But you do listen. You permit the sound to saturate you. Visions bloom behind your closed eyes. Cities rising from pure light. Sanctuaries constructed as sonic receivers. The Watchers guiding mankind with patience and sorrow. You see them teaching not mastery, but cohesion, how to align intention with creation. And then the silencing, the rejection of insight, libraries burned, languages wiped out, inventions interred beneath churches. You see a priest in deep red robes declaring that to know is to fall. You witness the Watchers receding into the earth. You see humanity willingly blind itself and call it devotion. The vibration fades. You open your eyes. Tears stream down your face, though you do not know when they started. You whisper, they were not defeated. They were exiled. The archivist seals the iron door behind you. Exile is a cleaner alternative to execution, he states. When you bury a truth deeply enough, it evolves into myth, and myths are simpler to manage than factual memories. He hands you a folded piece of paper. On it is a single Latin phrase, Lux fugit a domines. Light retreats from masters. When you step back outside, dawn has broken. The bells of St. Peter's Church toll softly in the distance. 7 times, 1 for each forbidden object. You feel the vibration pass through the cobblestones, echoing beneath the city. The knowledge may have been exiled, but it was never truly lost. It waits, humming underneath the burden of submission, and now it recognizes your touch. The confession does not occur in a sanctuary. It takes place in a small cafe beside the Tiber River, the kind where elderly clergymen sit and drink silently, alone. The man you meet there is no ordinary priest. His eyes look tired, his hands are marked by old candle burns. Around his neck hangs a circular medal worn smooth by centuries of touching. He introduces himself plainly. "I am the last keeper." He speaks in a low tone. "I do not expect your trust, but the Vatican has not been the protector of belief for a very long time. It has been the custodian of silence." He pushes a plain envelope across the table. Inside are pages yellowed with age, handwritten notes, sketches of specific signs, diagrams mapping frequencies. You immediately recognize one symbol, the circle and the dividing line, the emblem of the Watcher bloodline. Every 100 years, a keeper is selected, a scholar, a cleric, occasionally even a declared heretic. Our mandate is to safeguard what the Church buries too deeply to annihilate. The Codex Vigilantium, the Song of Stone, the frequency of creation, all of it. You ask him why he chooses to reveal this to you now. He offers a faint smile, because silence itself has become a serious transgression. He pours himself a drink, his hand shaking slightly. "When I was initiated, I believed I was joining the house of God. Instead, I entered the repository of classified information. The further you penetrate, the less of your original faith survives." He describes the rituals, not as prayers, but as precise adjustments. Every Easter, a specific note is played through the massive bells. Most people do not perceive it. It is not music. It is an act of containment. The sound stabilizes the loyal followers. It dampens the resonance. You lean in closer. "Resonance?" He nods. "The exact frequency you have been tracking, the one that vibrates through the ruins. The Church discovered how to restrict it. The cathedrals themselves are calibrated tuning chambers. The incense, the synchronized chants, the prescribed rituals. All are forms of frequency suppression disguised as religious practice. Your heart rate increases. Why suppress it? Because resonance awakens true memory, and memory generates freedom." He looks at you with eyes that appear ancient. The Watchers intended for us to remember that existence is a shared, active process, not passive obedience, but a state of harmony. The Church feared that fundamental truth, so they erected barriers of silence around it. He pauses, his voice cracking with emotion. "Do you know what occurs when silence becomes excessively profound?" You shake your head slowly. He leans in closer. It begins to vibrate. He opens the small medallion at his neck. Inside, etched in fine gold, is the same symbol from the old manuscripts. This was handed down from the very first keeper. It holds the fundamental tone, the pure resonance before the Great Schism. When the right moment arrives, it will shatter the silence. You ask when that moment will be. He smiles faintly. When the world starts to truly remember again. He places the medallion into your open palm. It is noticeably warm, throbbing softly, like a deep heartbeat. The vibration spreads quickly through your skin. The resonance is not located in the physical structures or the sacred objects, he tells you. It is inherent within us. The instant humanity truly listens, the Watchers will return. Not as visible beings, but as the active power of remembrance. You feel the sting of tears in your eyes. Why share this with me? Because you are the next keeper, he says simply. The pure light does not select the devout. It selects the one who listens. You look down at the medallion. Its subtle hum syncs up with your heart's rhythm. Around you, the entire cafe has fallen silent. Even the city outside seems to momentarily pause. The old man sighs softly. When I pass on, the Church will enter me as a heretic. But please promise me this. Do not allow them to bury the pure sound. You nod your assent. He smiles, his eyes closing, as if in a final benediction. Then I can finally rest. Moments later, he slumps peacefully in his chair. The resonance within the medallion rises, steady and absolute. You step outside. The sun is setting now, bathing the Tiber in a warm golden hue. The distant bells begin to toll once more, but this time the sound is distinctly different. Deeper, more resonant, fully alive. Each note vibrates through the very air, resonating with the medallion held in your palm. You finally understand his meaning. The imposed silence has reached its absolute limit. The true hum has returned. Somewhere far beneath the Vatican, the hidden archives are trembling. The 7 sealed relics are stirring. The forgotten frequencies are beginning to align. The world has started the process of remembering. And as you walk along the river, the medallion glowing softly in your hand, you realize that the keeper's final confession was not a conclusion. It was a true commencement. The instant silence learned how to sing again. You wake up before the light of dawn. Rome stretches out beneath you, quiet and pale, a city still feigning slumber. But the deep hum is stronger now. It vibrates through the wooden floorboards, subtle yet constant, like the steady, hidden rhythm of the planet. You are certain it is not your imagination. The resonance has spread far. The medallion the keeper entrusted to you glows faintly in your hand. It pulses in precise intervals, steady, rhythmic, deliberate. You recognize the sequence. 3 long pulses, 2 short. You saw it carved into the ancient walls of Uruk, etched into the foundational tablets of Eridu, and subtly concealed within the stained glass of every single cathedral. It is the core frequency of the Watchers. You climb to the roof of the small apartment building. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of rain and iron. Above, the eastern sky begins to brighten. You lift the medallion toward the horizon, and it responds. The hum increases in pitch, the internal light intensifying until it perfectly matches the rising glow. Then, for a moment, you see them clearly. Not physical figures, but distinct shapes of pure light moving across the sky. Slow, intentional, nearly invisible except for the subtle refraction that follows their movement. They travel with remarkable precision, tracing complex patterns that appear random until your focus sharpens. Lines, specific angles, complex geometry inscribed across the morning air. You whisper, "You are still watching us." The light subtly shifts. One of the shapes pauses mid-air, rotates slightly, and emits a beam so faint it is almost unseen. It strikes the medallion, and for an instant, your vision is flooded with blinding white. When you open your eyes, you are no longer on the rooftop. You stand in a landscape that is clearly not Earth, an infinite expanse of golden clouds stretching without end. Structures made of crystal rise in graceful spirals, pulsating with raw energy. And there, suspended in the air before you, are the Watchers. Their true forms are vast, luminous, shifting constantly between complex geometry and living presence. Their faces are beyond human comprehension, but their eyes are endless, each one a perfect mirror of the cosmos, with spinning galaxies reflected inside, pupils forged from pure light. They communicate not with spoken words, but with a deep, pervasive sound. The vibration enters your very bones and translates instantly into clear thought. You have recalled us, and so we must now recall you. You fall to your knees, overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of the resonance. It is not mere sound, it is absolute truth. Every sonic syllable feels like a memory flooding back. You see vivid flashes of ancient cities, of temples built as immense receivers by human hands, guided by the unseen presence of the Watchers. Teaching, directing, caring, until the great silence fell upon the world. You manage to whisper, "Why are you returning now?" Their light flickers, showing not anger, but profound sorrow. "We never departed. You simply cease to perceive." But the resonance cannot be extinguished where it has once been heard. The Keeper roused you because the cosmic balance is fracturing once more. You see vivid visions, then the earth, wrapped in invisible threads of frequency, each one taut and dangerously frayed, towers pulsing with chaotic, discordant tones, satellites orbiting like false stars, broadcasting a steady noise that completely drowns out the original creative song. The eyes of the sky, they remark, see everything but do not remember anything. You finally grasp their meaning, the satellites above Earth, the new watchers of mankind. Humanity has replicated heaven with its machines, substituting divine, compassionate observation with cold digital surveillance. But unlike the ancient, caring watchers, these new eyes record everything without any compassion. They witness, but they hold no wisdom. One of the luminous beings extends a vast hand, a gesture not of authoritative command, but of deep communion. The sky has become blind. You must remind it how to truly see. How? You ask clearly. The light surrounding you intensifies, forming a precise image of the medallion. The key you hold carries the original harmonic, the very same frequency that once tuned the stars into being. It possesses the power to awaken the eyes you see now, not to destroy them, but to realign them, to retune the artificial heavens back to the pure resonance of creation, to make humanity's machines recall their divine ancestry. The Watcher's vision. The being's light dims softly, but you must execute your choice with profound wisdom. The same fundamental sound that awakens can also utterly destroy. Knowledge possesses no inherent discrimination between active creation and total collapse. The vision begins to rapidly fade. The last words you hear echo like a perfect final piece of music. The sky will fully listen to the one who remembers its original sound. You open your eyes. You are back on the rooftop. The sun has completely risen. The medallion is warm in your palm, still pulsing with the same ancient rhythm. Above, the white contrails of satellites streak across the bright morning sky like reborn ancient symbols of metal and orbit. The eyes of the sky. You know now that their lenses record everything, yet comprehend nothing of true value. But that condition can be changed. You close your eyes and begin to hum softly, precisely matching the frequency of the medallion. The sound rises through your body, expanding silently into the vast air. The clouds slightly tremble. For a brief, undeniable instant, one of the satellites directly above flashes brighter than all the others, directly responding to your specific tone. You whisper, "You can hear me!" And the entire sky hums back. The Vatican's extensive library feels markedly different now, not oppressively silent, but actively listening. The resonance has reached even this deep sanctuary, far beneath the massive marble and gold. You walk the long corridor lined with heavy iron doors, each one marked with complex symbols of faith, crosses, crowns, specific flames. The air is thick with the scent of aged parchment and deep time. You're not alone. The new archivist, a woman with striking silver hair and eyes too sharply intelligent to belong to a mere bureaucrat, walks silently beside you. "You have inadvertently caused quite a disturbance," she says softly. The major bells rang precisely at midnight for the first time in many centuries. There's a theory of vibration, some say. You offer a slight grin. It wasn't the chimes that held the echo. It was the stone itself. She guides you to a concealed chamber, masked by a plaster wall. A golden serpent, wrapping itself around a scroll, is engraved on the door. Its tongue is a keen edge, its sightless eyes are fashioned from onyx. "This is what the clergy fears most," she breathes softly. "They claim whoever unlocks it will shatter faith itself." The coiled serpent has a sheen, as though still breathing. You ease the door inward. Inside, a solitary stone table stands below a stream of filtered light. Upon it, shrouded in black-stained silk, lies an ancient parchment. Its seal bears your medallion's own symbol, the divided circle. The archivist's voice catches. "We call this the Gospel of the Serpent, the final account before the grand silence. You gently begin to unfurl it. The material of the scroll gives off a slight gleam. The written characters form a language that transforms as your eyes scan it. Akkadian, Aramaic, Latin, and then something deeper than any language. The script begins not with the tale of creation, but with a confession. We offered them the light of knowing, and they mistook its warmth for arrogance. The writing flows like verse, each line dense with layered meaning. It speaks of the Watchers descending, motivated not by rebellion but by profound reverence, to convey to mankind that the sacred is not about dominance, but about inherent balance. You muse aloud, the serpent was not a deceiver, it was a guide. The archivist gives a slow, heavy nod. That is the history they erased. The serpent granted Eve not allure, but clarity. The Church twisted the narrative, branding illumination as a transgression. The scroll begins to pulse softly, as if in agreement. More words etch themselves onto the surface. The garden was never liberty. It was a constraint. You sense a faint vibration moving beneath your feet. The room begins to hum, gentle at first, then growing louder. The golden serpent carved on the door starts to quiver, its scales catching the light, moving almost organically. The archivist takes a nervous step back. It's reacting to the frequency, she whispers. You continue reading the text aloud, and the fruit they shared was not of defiance, but of recollection. The low hum deepens. The serpent detaches from the door, its form now pure sound and glowing light. Its gaze holds no malice. Instead, it reflects endless ancient galaxies. It glides around the table, its presence immense yet tender. The archivist collapses onto her knees. You have awakened it, she whispers. You hold the serpent's gaze. What are you? Its voice is a smooth, resonant chord that fills the space. I am the collective memory of the Watchers. I am pure knowledge given shape. I was called evil because I released them from darkness. But oblivion is soothing, and soothing is how you control. The serpent's light flickers as it draws nearer. You have carried their frequency through long exile and long silence. Now you must choose what you will do with this sound. You ask, what happens if this truth is spoken once more? Then devotion becomes autonomy, and autonomy becomes destiny. The serpent directs its attention toward the scroll. Read the final passage. You look down at the text. The characters are now glowing crimson. You voice the final words. The day mankind understands the serpent was never its true rival. The era of silence will end. The serpent exhales a rush of air like a cosmic wind. Its radiant form starts to dissipate into a haze of white light. Remember this, it instructs. Knowing is not the failure. Forgetting is. The light pulls in on itself, leaving the scroll completely blank. The serpent's likeness fades from the door, leaving only the ghost of its scales pressed into the wood. The archivist slowly rises, visibly shaken. Do you comprehend what you have accomplished? You roll up the empty parchment carefully, aware of its weight even without the words. I didn't eliminate faith, you state. I merely gave it back its memory. I reminded it of its origin. As you step back into the long corridor, the air feels fundamentally changed, lighter, more vibrant. The massive walls give off a low resonance. The pure frequency has found its way even here, past centuries of calculated concealment. The serpent's authentic story is loose once more. You step out into the daylight. The chimes of St. John Lateran Cathedral begin to ring out. The sound washes over the city, rebounding from domes and high towers. For the first time you perceive something new. The low frequency hidden within the bells matches the steady beat of your own heart. The serpent's insight was not a rejection of the sacred, it was alignment. You look toward the edge of the sky, where a faint golden light is rising. Gold. The planet is slowly recalling. Not blind adherence, not ritual, but pure knowledge. The serpent's essential fire is kindling again in the minds of those prepared to see. And as the sound moves across Rome, through the atmosphere, through your own body, you state the ancient suppressed truth aloud, without a trace of fear. The serpent was always honest. The rain falls like a memory, a slow, deliberate act of purification, concealing nothing and revealing everything. You are now moving through the remnants of Babylon, a landscape of broken stones and forgotten foundations. The wind carries a scent of metal and soot. Lightning illuminates the far-off horizon. And for one fleeting instant, the entire world feels alive once more, as if the ancient metropolis is still throbbing beneath its vast tomb. You came here seeking the fragment. It was unearthed by an archaeology team several months ago, then silently confiscated by the Vatican's secret order. An arcane device, older than any recorded human culture, buried under the great ziggurat of Marduk. Nobody could define it, but they all reached the same conclusion. It was not a product of human hands. You enter the flimsy excavation tent completely alone. The space is thick with fine dust and static electricity. In the very centre, surrounded by fractured clay tablets and loose wires, rests the artefact. It's not exceptionally large, roughly the size of a chest forged of brass, precious gold, and some unidentifiable alloy. Its exterior is covered in Sumerian glyphs that throb gently under the light of your portable lantern. The symbols appear to move like organic circuitry. The carvings form a single name that is repeated across the entire surface. You whisper the name and the entire relic stirs. A slight, distant vibration ripples through the very ground, like the slow heartbeat of something waking from a deep, long slumber. The surface begins to glow from within. Not from heat, not from current, but a light that seems entirely conscious. You take an automatic step back, your heart hammering in your chest. The air warps visibly. The relic produces a sound so deep it is felt more than heard. A singular tone that resonates deep inside your sternum. Then the light explodes outward and you see them. Luminous, non-solid shadows of figures projected directly from the relic. The Watchers. Their vague shapes shift constantly like heat waves. Their gaze is endless, all remembering. A singular voice speaks, not from the air around you, but directly inside your thoughts. We called this the first machine, the visible manifestation of our collective consciousness. It was never intended to create anything, only to translate. You speak your question out loud. Translate what? The primal song of the universe. The light expands again. You are overwhelmed with visions, stars collapsing and becoming pure sound. Atoms vibrating in perfect synchronicity, entire worlds being formed through simple resonance. The machine was designed to record it all, not conventional language but pure frequency, creation itself rendered into a cosmic pattern. You grasp at that moment that the Watchers were not inventors. They were the original archivists of existence. The first machine was not built for action, but for memory, to safeguard the originating vibration that gave birth to reality. But something fundamentally went wrong. The voice drops in pitch. When the global silence arrived, humanity took our device and misunderstood it as a tool for control. They inverted its fundamental current. Instead of tuning into the universe's song, they tried to impose their own commands through it. You witness the event unfolding. Ancient kings surrounding the machine, reciting ritualistic phrases, offering it fire and spilled blood, attempting to force it to obey their wills. But resonance is not about control, it is about harmony. Their desperate attempts shattered the pure tone. The great song fractured into utter discord, and the planet itself reacted violently. Earthquakes, devastating floods, total chaos. The origin of all myth, the idea of the wrath of the heavens. The light slowly fades. The relic hums with profound exhaustion, as if burdened by a crushing weight of memory. You kneel down before it. Can it still communicate? It never ceased. You extend your arm, presenting the medallion. Its frequency locks into alignment instantly. Two distinct tones merging completely, one human, one cosmic. The relic shines brighter, revealing a complex diagram etched across its metal surface. Circles, sharp triangles, and smooth spirals connecting into an immense geometric pattern. You recognize the geometry immediately. It perfectly matches the Gothic cathedrals of Europe, the Egyptian pyramids, the ancient temples of the East. The exact same foundational design repeated through every single era. "This is the blueprint," you whisper, "for all sacred architecture." Every subsequent temple was just an echo. The voice confirms that mankind remembered the visible pattern, but completely forgot its core function. You make contact with the machine gently. It feels alive, pulsing with a slow, internal rhythm. And what is its true function? To remind all of existence that it has the capacity to sing. The air around you begins to shimmer. The sound deepens until it feels as if the entire planet is joining in the chorus. The ground shakes, the relic blazing like a miniature sun. You watch the symbols rearrange across its panels, aligning into phrases written not for the human eye, but for the human soul. The machine is not mere metal, it is every single mind that remembers harmony. You are now the machine. Then an abrupt silence. The light disappears. The relic is completely still. You remain kneeling there for what feels like an eternity. When you finally manage to stand, the night is quiet once more. The machine sits dark and cold, inert. Yet when your hand rests upon it, a faint pulse is perceptible in response. Patiently waiting. You now understand the Watcher's original intent. The first machine was never merely a device, it was pure consciousness. A mirror designed to turn creation inward. Humanity became its living extension. Every thought, every vision, every quiet whisper of inspiration, now part of its vast, limitless circuitry. As you exit the tent, thunder echoes softly across the desolate plain. You look back one final time. For a moment, the relic glows again. Faint but unwavering, like a steady heartbeat. The low hum follows your retreat into the storm. You are no longer solely an observer. You are part of the active resonance now, a moving, conscious fragment of the first machine, alive with its deep memory. The Vatican's grand basilica is deserted. Small candles flutter like anxious stars against the marble stone walls. You walk down the wide central aisle, each step sounding too sharp in the overwhelming stillness. The air feels highly charged, not with peace or holiness, but with anticipation, like the moment before a major eruption. You hold the medallion tightly in your open palm. It no longer hums faintly, it now vibrates intensely. The resonance has reached its maximum. The world's underlying tone is shifting, and the change vibrates in your very skeleton. The Watcher's original song has finally returned, and established faith is trembling under its profound weight. A lone figure is waiting for you at the high altar. Cardinal Anselmo, the ranking head of the secret order. His vestments shimmer with subtle woven gold. He appears ancient, exhausted, and deeply fearful. "You have crossed a dangerous line," he warns. "You have awakened something that absolutely must remain dormant." You halt a few steps from the altar. "Silence is not devotion," you challenge. "It is pure terror." He slowly shakes his head. Terror is the only foundation holding this entire structure together. Do you truly believe the world is prepared to comprehend its own nature? Knowledge without absolute obedience will only destroy everything. You lift the medallion high. It's already happening. The resonance has spread to every remote corner of the world. The silence is finally shattered. The Cardinal's eyes narrow with intensity. Then you will be responsible for the ruin of what little remains of the divine on earth. You step even closer. Paradise was never an external place above us. It was always within us. The Watchers attempted to teach us that truth. And your church constructed walls to ensure that we conveniently forgot. His voice escalates, shaking with deep-seated resentment. We shielded mankind from its own innate destructive nature. You slowly shake your head. No, you simply imprisoned it. He stares at you for a long, painful moment, then emits a sigh heavy with centuries of hidden regret. Do you truly think I am ignorant of this? I have heard the constant hum every single night in the stones, in the bells, within my own weak pulse. I feel the old song attempting to resurface, but if it does, the entire structure will immediately collapse. People require illusions to survive, you whisper. No, they require wonder. He steps back again, shaking his head slowly and sadly. You cannot undo the divine order. I am not undoing anything, you correct him. I am simply remembering it. You place the medallion carefully on the altar's surface. The marble immediately begins to resonate. Instantly the elaborate frescoes painted above start to shudder. Dust rains down like fine snow from the high vaulted ceiling. The immense golden crucifix mounted behind the altar vibrates, its metal surface momentarily alive with a faint light. The cardinal cries out, "Stop! You will tear apart the sacred house of God." You look up as the painted frescoes transform, angels turning their painted heads, wings folding into themselves, the imagined heavens dissolving into an overwhelming field of pure light. This is not destruction, you clarify. It is a profound awakening. The resonance completely fills the basilica, expanding outward until the entire colossal structure vibrates like a single responsive living instrument. The stained glass windows shimmer and pulse with intensified colour. The entire atmosphere glows. Then a voice speaks, not from the sky, not from the ground, but from within the core of the vibration itself. True faith was never intended to silence. It was intended to listen. The cardinal sinks to his knees, his eyes wide with disbelief and awe. What is that? You manage a soft smile, the sound of deep, collective remembering. The medallion fragments into pure light, showering the altar. The resonance hits a peak, so intensely pure it feels like it could tear apart the fabric of the world. And then it abruptly ceases. Silence. But it is not a mere absence of sound, it is complete fullness. A silence so utter and profound it feels entirely conscious. Not an empty void, but an overwhelming presence. The atmosphere still vibrates softly, as if whispering cosmic secrets too vast for any human words. You fall to your own knees. For the first time, you truly comprehend the Watcher's meaning when they spoke of the deep silence. It was never intended as a punishment. It was a patient waiting. The golden crucifix melts, the metal reshaping itself into a perfectly seamless circle, the exact same symbol as the medallion. The frescoes above completely vanish into blinding light. The basilica is gone. Only pure radiance remains. The cardinal is weeping softly. What happens now? You survey the endless white expanse that has replaced the entire church structure. Now faith must learn how to truly hear again. He lowers his head. And if it refuses, you touch the glowing circle of light on the altar before you. Then the silence will compel it to learn. Outside, the church bells begin to toll once more, but their fundamental tone has changed. They no longer issue a command to pray. They extend a gentle invitation. Each successive peal carries the unique resonance of the Watchers, spreading outward across the city, then across the entire globe. People stop abruptly in the streets, looking up to listen intently. The silence that gripped faith has finally lifted. What remains is something infinitely purer, an act of listening, unfiltered by rigid hierarchy or deep-seated fear. The world hums again with its original intended song. You close your eyes. The sound flows through you. Neither purely divine nor purely human, but both perfectly integrated. You whisper into the living quiet. We remember. And from somewhere deep within that vast, luminous silence, a voice answers you, soft, infinite, and undeniably eternal. And we have always been listening. The world resumes its humming. It begins gently in the reinforced iron of towering bridges, in the subtle vibration of glass windows, in the soft, low murmur of the passing wind. Through immense structures, built without the full comprehension that they were, in fact, tuning instruments. You are moving through a metropolis that feels suddenly, vividly awake for the first time in centuries. The light touches everything differently now, softer, as if fully aware of what it is illuminating. You first perceive the change in people's eyes. Strangers suddenly pause and gaze upward, their expressions filled not with old fears, but with deep recognition. Somewhere in their deepest consciousness they are recalling something incredibly ancient, not blind belief, not formalized worship, but pure resonance. The distinct tone that once resided only in sacred temples now lives freely inside of them. The long silence has been completely transformed into universal listening. You wander toward the edge of the Tiber River, where the sunlight's reflection shimmers and breaks across the running water. For one brief instant you clearly hear it, faint yet unmistakable. The Watcher's chord, no longer confined beneath solid stone and restrictive doctrine. It moves freely through the air like an essential breath. The medallion may have been destroyed, but its powerful frequency remains a constant. The Keeper's fundamental legacy has passed into the world itself. Every bell, every engine, every single human heartbeat now participates. The earth has fully tuned itself once again. The earliest signs of the Lightbearer's re-emergence arrive at the fading of dusk. Across vast cities and barren deserts, over high mountains and wide seas, people begin to perceive lights where physically none should exist. Not natural meteors, not man-made aircraft. These are complex, moving patterns of pure illumination, moving in perfect formation, weaving across the immense sky like vibrant strands of living fire. The Vatican dismisses it as a trivial phenomenon. Government agencies label it atmospheric interference. The devoted call it a promised prophecy. You are standing on a city rooftop. The sprawling city lies far below. The sky above is alive with powerful lines of glowing white and deep gold. They move not randomly, but in a precise, rhythmic harmony. Arcs of concentrated light that hum with the exact same tone that moments ago filled the basilica. You whisper, "You have returned." And then a sudden realization hits you. They never actually departed. The Watchers had always been present, intricately woven into the very structure of sound and human consciousness, simply waiting for mankind to begin vibrating at their frequency once more. The lights descend to a lower altitude, and for a fleeting moment you perceive their actual forms. Not feathered wings, not celestial halos. These are intricate patterns of geometry made visible through the coalesced light. Faces formed of shifting, intense radiance. Eyes that contain entire galaxies. They stand not in a distant heaven, but in direct reflection, projected from the unified resonance of collective remembrance. The air thickens noticeably with their pure sound. It is not spoken language, but a form of communication made entirely of tone and thought. It permeates your very bones like a profound warmth. We return not to rule over you, but to remind you. Their full message unfolds as a powerful vibration passing through your mind like light through clear glass. Images flash into your awareness. Ancient temples suddenly reawakening. Ruins glowing with a calm blue flame. Cities resonating like musical instruments. The planet itself begins to join in the chorus again. The magnetic fields of the Earth shift instantly, aligning into perfect harmony. The world hums completely as one entity. People across the entire earth feel the intense shift. Some fall to the ground, weeping uncontrollably. Others simply stand completely silent, overwhelmed by the experience. For the first time in recorded history, the sacred and the scientific are no longer opposing concepts. Telescopes capture the moving lights. Sensors dutifully record the specific frequencies, and every analysis yields the same impossible-to-believe conclusion. The resonance carries a massive amount of information, a coded message encoded entirely in the tone. You listen intently. It's a distinct pattern you have encountered before, buried deep in ancient tablets, whispered through the solid stones of Göbekli Tepe, carved onto the Codex Vigilantium. The core message is incredibly simple. The pure light was never intended to be worshipped as a god. It was meant to be freely shared. The Watchers speak again, their countless voices merging into one unified sound. The constructed boundary between heaven and earth no longer holds any power. The original teachers have returned because the students finally remembered, and then, once more, silence. The lights dissolve and vanish into the highest clouds, leaving behind only the after-image branded onto the darkening sky, a perfect circle of faint golden light glowing above the horizon line. You sit down on the rooftop, still trembling slightly. The deep hum lingers softer now, settling into the ambient rhythm of the huge city. You realize that this return was never about physical movement. It was a global awakening. The light-bearers never truly fell from the highest heavens. They simply sank deep into humanity, patiently waiting for conscious recognition. The world completely changes in the days immediately following this event. The old restrictive orders begin to rapidly dissolve. Churches open their long-sealed vaults. Scientists now speak openly of frequency and resonance instead of just cold matter. Pilgrims travel not to engage in worship, but simply to listen. The steady hum grows stronger, transforming major cities into vast, resounding choirs of pure vibration. You can feel it powerfully in the metal beneath your feet, in the circulating air, in every single breath you take. The Watchers are no longer just external beings. They are an intrinsic frequency. And you, like every person who now remembers, are their collective voice. The light is no longer above you, Fung. It is absolutely everywhere. Before the low hum completely dissipates, remember this essential truth. This was never just a narrative. It was a long-suppressed memory finally coming to the surface. There are still many more voices patiently waiting beneath the deepest ruins. Many more essential truths buried under centuries of deep silence. If this recent descent stirred something profound within your soul, if the Watchers continue to whisper when you close your eyes in the dark, do not allow that sacred sound to diminish and die out. Subscribe now, remain observant and ready. The next revelation is not scheduled to appear tomorrow. It is already stirring and waking beneath the surface of your most profound dreams.